Hello, this is ST536 for the MST program. I'm Rob Hepler. Today we're trying something a little different since it's a class about survey of technology. I'm teaching today from my house, and I'm teaching from an iPad. And I've never done this before, so this is kind of a beta test for me. I know it does work. I'm sure there'll be a few glitches along the way, but let's give it a shot. And I just wanted you to see what's available, what kind of technology we can have. Um, this is just the beginning of where this is all going to head. I could teach this from my phone as well, but for tonight, I'm just going to use the iPad. And what I've done, just to make this clear, is I've uploaded a PowerPoint file to our server, so I can access it from the iPad through the Adobe Connect software, which is application software. It's also a web service software. Today we're going to talk about application software, as you can see. Shouldn't be a very long lecture because this is stuff you know, and there's not much I can say about it, and that's one reason I wanted to use this lecture as a test. The overview, you can read through that. Application software is this stuff you're going to use to do most of what you do with the computer. It's Microsoft Office. It's Adobe Reader. It's Adobe, software to edit video, software to edit photographs. It's whatever you do. It's software. It's iTunes is an application software. You get the idea. I'm monitoring myself on my laptop over here so I can make sure everything's working okay, just so you know what I'm looking at back there. So here's a list of all kinds of application software, and these slides are going to list a lot of application software, and I'm not going to talk much about those because you know those, you know what they are. And they're just, as I mentioned before, a tool is a tool, and how you use it is entirely up to you. The difference here is someone has to create a file of instructions. A program, of course, is a file of instructions. Application software is a program. That's what software is. And somebody's going to have to write these programs. And as you can imagine, something like Microsoft Office is a huge program. It's written by a team of people, and everyone writes a different section of the software, and then it's integrated and tested in what's called integration testing to get a program that works as well as Microsoft Office does. Here's a list of some of the different categories, I guess it is, of software. Business. Every business now runs their business with software. The key to using software with business is that you don't want to change your business to match the software. You want the software to match your business, and that's an interesting concept, and we'll talk about that when we talk about systems development and programming a little more. But you can go through here and see some of these things, and then there's the graphics, and the textbook breaks this into 4 different categories and communications. Okay. The point is, application software is anything you need to do, and someone writes the program. You actually could write your own. Some businesses have their own programmers write their application software. But once it's in a file of instructions, and machine instructions they're called, it becomes application software. And here's a list of them, and you've seen all this before. This is one of the glitches I've noticed with this conversion process. What Adobe Connect is, converts the PowerPoint to Flash, and there's always a few glitches. So application software, we think of the way you can get the software in these terms here. Packaged software means a vendor, like for instance Microsoft, writes programs and packages them, and you buy them in shrink wrap. You buy them and you install them on your computer. Because you paid for them, the company that wrote the software, Microsoft or Microsoft Office, supports them with updates and some kind of support if you pay for them, and that's how they make their money. You buy their software, and then you buy updates, upgrades, Office 2003, Office 2007, Office 2010, and so forth, 2013. and now Office 360, which is a web-based, we'll talk about in a little bit. So package software, that's what that is. A company, interviews a lot of people and asks, what do you need? What do you need the software to do? Then they write software to do that, and then they package it and sell it to you, just like a deck of cards. It's a package software. It's a product. Custom software is when you have requirements for your application, for your company, for whatever it is, that you cannot buy software to meet what you need to do, so you write your own software. And you can write the whole package from the ground up to get exactly what you need, or there are cases where you can buy third-party software, third-party, and that's software someone else has written, but there are also many software companies will customize the software specifically for you. So custom software is, sorry for the interruptions, custom software is something that's written, and you can start with software and then have the vendor customize it just for you. That's also an option that's available. Web application software, and it could be packaged or custom or otherwise. It really isn't exclusive of those. It's just an application that runs on someone else's computer and you access it via the internet or the web. And most of it runs on another computer and you get the services or the results. Open source. It's an interesting concept. What the source, in the lecture on programming, we'll talk about what that is more precisely. But the source code is the code that somebody writes. That's what near English, somebody can read it. It's not machine instructions. It's something between machine instructions and English. And it's run through another program called a compiler, which turns it into machine instructions. Now the source is the originating, the source, if you will, source of the river. It's the stuff you write. Now open source means you get a program that runs and it does an application for you, but you also get the source code to modify it in any way you'd like. So that's the advantage of open source. We use something here, and a lot of people use it, called Moodle. And Moodle is a piece of software that allows, it's called classroom organization. And it's an online software that allows you to do distance education or online organizing. And it allows us to do what we do. The discussion forums we use for this class is Moodle. And Moodle's freeware. And it's also open source. We can get the source for Moodle, and we can add and take away things from it as much as we want. Now, and it's also public domain. It's available out there in the public domain. Now, open source, in the case of Moodle, and in most cases, has a community, if you will, a group of people who use the software, write software for it, and then share that software. And shareware would be something that somebody writes and allows other people to use. Now, in the case of Moodle, there's a whole huge worldwide community, because Moodle's been very big in Europe for years and starting to get big in the States. And this community actually has certain standards. Although you can get software written by other people and use it, you can also write your own. It doesn't become an accepted part of Moodle per se until it passes the standardization committee, and that, which isn't to say that you can't use it. It just means they like to maintain some quality level and some aspect of standardization. So you can either write your own or use what other people have written, and that's the advantage of open source. We have a community of people all over the world writing software to do things. So it's something we want to do that Moodle doesn't currently do. Somebody probably has already invented that wheel, and we don't have to reinvent it. We can go find it somewhere. And public domain software is just available for people to use for free. Unix used to be that way. And this is one of the issues I've found with this conversion. I got to go to the next slide and come back to see everything. This is just a quick slide. We've talked about it before. System software is the software that interfaces between us and the application software and the hardware. Okay? This, in most cases, generally we think of it in these terms. The application software talks to the system software, which talks to the hardware. So when we run Microsoft Word, you remember how this works? We get a copy of it from a disk drive, non-volatile memory, storage, if you will, and then we load that into RAM, and the program starts executing. So there's a file of instructions called MS Word located on the hard disk. We click on an icon by moving the mouse and double-clicking, and it opens up that file on the disk, moves it to RAM, and starts executing the commands in that file. And then it loads up the first screen in Word, and then we start operating Microsoft Word. So the system software is what stands between us and the applications. That allows people to write application software that talks just to the operating system, not to different kinds of hardware. And that's just what we were just talking about. This is just showing you real quickly the interface and how you operate programs. You know how to do that. I don't need to go into that. Some examples of business software. And these categories they're using here in these slides are somewhat arbitrary. Word processing can be used for anything. It's a hammer. It's a tool. And you've used most of these. Enterprise computing is something that it works across a whole organization. It integrates all the different departments into one type of software. Accounting, you know what that is. Document management, that's Adobe sorts of things, or people that have digitized claim forms, you know, those kinds of things. Project management, Microsoft has a product for that too, but there's other people that make software that do project management as well. Clip art is another term, and what we're trying to do here with this slide is just get you the idea that what application software does is completely dependent on what the manufacturer of that software, or the producer of that software, wants it to do. Okay, and clip art is a standardized approach or standard term, and this little thing here is clip art. You probably all know what that is. It's just digital forms of some kind of little icon or something. Microsoft Word comes with the icons, but then you can also add your own. Okay, here's some of the things word processors do. I don't see anything that's out of the ordinary here. You should be used to a lot of these things. If not, as I've said before, write it in the discussion forum and we'll talk about it or contact me. But I'm not going to go into all these different functions. And that's what these are, functions of application software. Okay, this is just how the application software works. I shouldn't need to explain this too much. You've had this concept. You create a document. Where is it created? Random access memory, or RAM. When you say save it, remember, a copy goes to the hard disk. And then it's saved. Okay, so creating the document happens in RAM. You edit it, RAM. You format it, RAM. When you save it, goes to hard disk. Pretty straightforward stuff. We've covered all this. The idea of what these applications do, you should know by now. A spreadsheet is Excel. It's an example. And these are some examples. Notice, of course, that spreadsheets have been around for centuries. We've just put them on computers recently. They weren't invented, but for computers. So something people forget is most of what computers do has been done many times and will continue to be done without computers. Computers just make it easier. If you've ever read or seen A Christmas Carol, that's what Bob Cratchit does for Scrooge. He's doing spreadsheets. That's his job. I bet he wishes he had had a computer. These are functions in spreadsheets: net present value, future value, and so forth. I'm not going to go into those. It's not a training class. We're just quickly talking about applications. And of course, spreadsheets also can make pictorial representations of your data. Pie chart is here, bar chart, XY chart. Okay, and you can do that. You should all know this. There's nothing new here. And there's another lecture on database, which you'll see. So that's another form of application, the DBMS, the Database Management System. And of course PowerPoint is an example of presentation software, and that's what I'm using here. Although it's interesting to note that Adobe Connect actually converted it to Flash, so I could play it here better. It actually isn't better. I've just learned something. If you're going to upload a PowerPoint presentation in Adobe Connect, don't do transitions. It doesn't work very well, okay? I'll remember that for next time. Note-taking software. You know, that's what this is showing here. You can actually write on things. There's software that allow you to do that. Make it easier. And I know one that's very nice. It's called Evernote. I use it. And it started out as an app on iPad and Android systems. But now, of course, you can also get it on the computer. And what it allows you to do is keep notes and keeps track of everything you do. You can be on a website and say, capture that website and put it as a note into Evernote. It's free, but there's a lot of features you might want to pay for. And it allows you, it's kind of like your memory is what it is. And you can just throw things in there, categorize them, search your notes. You might look into it. It's very interesting. It just made me think of it here, this note-taking software. I'm not going into these things. These are pretty obvious what they do. You've used them or you understand the concept. Software suite. Well, you could call Microsoft Office a suite of software. We used to call it that. You don't hear it that much these days. Personal Information Manager, there's those as well. Address book, Notepad, appointment calendar. Well, the thing is, these software packages used to be a separate category, but now most of this is being done on the web. Google Calendar, for instance, or other software. That's a web service, by the way. Here's some others. Enterprise software, where you would have, these might be separate applications. And then the information technology department will have some, but overarching all of these would be the enterprise system. The enterprise resource management, or ERP, ERM, manufacturing. And what it does is all these are tied in, so if there's information that needs to be shared here, and you can just do the sales, which turns into accounting, and so forth and so on. That's an enterprise level system. There's some graphics software, which I'm not going to go into. Some of these you've heard of, I'm sure. So probably some you haven't. There's Adobe for web authoring, and that allows you to just create documents. You can actually create web pages from Microsoft Word by formatting it in Word and then saving it as an HTML file, and it will attempt to create the HTML. And it's pretty good at it. It's not the best way to do it. There's other software like Dreamweaver is a really good one. It's also available. It's an Adobe product, I believe. Excuse me. Premiere Pro, that's what we use in our department to edit the videos, like the commencement videos that I used to do. I don't do them anymore, but we have some people that are less experienced doing it now. That's the decision that was made. And you can just go through this list. And then there's computer-aided design. Not much to say here, unless you've used it or want to use it. That software allows you to design things on the computer, and they're getting very sophisticated. You actually can build a product by designing the parts and then putting the parts together on the computer. That allows you to also get costs. You associate costs with each part, and then when you put the whole product together, you have a cost then of what it will cost. And then you can, if you want to make it better, you can focus on making the parts better, which is going to change the overall cost of the whole product and so forth. And that's really the way things happen now. There's computer aid for mechanics on your cars now. They can plug your car into a computer, and the mechanic gets a head start on what he needs to do, he or she needs to do. Desktop publishing and so forth. You've probably all used these things to one extent or another, and you can take training or classes in them. The best thing to do is just use them yourself. It's nice to get help too. Web authoring, you can create web pages, and you can keep a library of pages and so forth. The advantage of this, of course, is you can have standardization by not allowing certain constructs on your website and enforcing that through the web page authoring software. You can do what's called style sheets, and everybody has to use the same style sheets, which gives you the same color, look, feel on your web page regardless of the content. And it's quite an advantage if you're having a massive website and you want to keep your brand image. And people that use websites like to have a familiar look and feel so that they feel like they're on the same website. And it allows you to attach data and so forth and other applications, they're called. Here's some others. Really not much to say on this. Mapping software, educational software, entertainment. There's a product that I've talked about a lot, Spotify. And that's a classic example of a web service. It's run mostly on their servers. A lot of the files will reside on your computer. It will use all your music, for instance, and play your music, but it also plays music from their server and then you can combine the two into playlists, and you can pretty much listen to any music you could ever think of in the history of music. It's pretty close. I haven't found many that are not in Spotify, and I've been around a long time, and the music I listened to when I was a kid is available, as well as all the new, when there's a new album coming out, I can go look for it on Spotify. What it does for me is I don't have to buy or pay to download music anymore. I can pay a monthly fee to Spotify, and I can get any music I want, including brand new albums, and play them on any device connected to the internet, or I can even download them to my phone and play them without a network connection. And it's a new application frontier. It's a web service, and it's changing the way we do things. So this is web application. That's what Spotify is. That's what iTunes is in a sense. Although iTunes runs on your computer, it also has an aspect of it, which is a web application, which is the iTunes store, where you get apps, books, music, videos. You pay for them and you can download them, and then iTunes running on your computer manages it for you. And that's the same with Spotify. It has software that runs on your computer, and it has an app that runs on your phone or your iPad or your Android system. And here's some other examples here. You've probably used some of these. Google Docs, the Google Suite, as I would call it, are web apps. Google Docs is a way to use the cloud by uploading your documents, and Google will accept Microsoft documents like Word, PowerPoint, Excel, and others, and it will do a conversion of that file into a Google format. And the Google Docs, they have a version of spreadsheet, they have a version of word processing, and a version of presentation software, and that's in their productivity suite, which you can think of as a Microsoft Office suite. And once you load it up there, the advantage, of course, is you can access it from anywhere, number one. Other people can access it from anywhere, number two. You can also point to it from a web page, and it will be displayed as a document on the web page. That's pretty nice. And also, it's kind of a backup in a way. So it's a way to share documents. You can have a group of people working on a document, and all access it from Google Docs, and you all can make changes, and you can work on it together. It's the future, and of course, we're going to continue to move in that direction because it just makes sense. You're going to have less need for hard disk and local programs as we move down the road. This is an example of Google Docs. And this probably was an Excel document that they loaded up into Google Docs. And I don't know what Google calls this particular part of their suite. Um, but you can see it was an Excel document which was uploaded, and then you can access it on the web using a web service, which is Google Docs. And you can see it looks like a spreadsheet, and you can do things with it. Down here you can see you can do a 3D pie chart, and you can read it, put it on the web. A lot of things you can do with it. You can share it over here with people, probably through email, and also through their Google Docs account, or you can just give them access to your Google Docs account. Communications, we've talked about this in other lectures. I did want to mention this one. And that's RSS is a rich service. I'm sorry, I can't think of it right now. Look it up. Let me know. Type and send it into the discussion forum. And of course, the discussion forum would fall over here. And RSS, what that allows you to do is have news or information from many different websites. The RSS will create a feed as it were, and this is a program that runs, and you just give it the addresses of these other websites who are generating an RSS feed. You can think of it as a news feed, like a ticker tape. If you've ever seen the signs on Madison Square Avenue, Times Square, I mean, or in Berlin, there's one. You know, those news things and it's kind of like that. The data flows like those signs do with the headlines scrolling across. The difference is it's data feed that's sent, and the aggregator goes to the website and continually gets feeds and shows them to you, just like those signs, those news signs. The ticker at the bottom of CNN or Fox News, it's like that, but it happens on the web via the internet. VoIP is voice over IP. That's your phone using the internet. And of course, we're kind of doing this one. Blogging, as you probably all know by now, but real quickly, it's just a way for people to put their ideas out there, or a journal, if you will, and other people follow and can make comments. It's like kind of like your journal is an open book, so you can use it for news or anything. And of course, there's online help or web-based help. Excuse me. Web-based help or online help, and that's what they're showing here. Office has a great suite of online stuff. What's the advantage of online? Well, of course, they can update it as software changes and as they fix bugs, because there's going to be help for things that don't work. And then when they give you an update to your software that fixes that bug, well, the help file is no longer going to tell you about that bug. So you get the latest stuff. There's an incredible amount of stuff available on the Microsoft website for Office. You can get templates, you can get all kinds of things, very useful. Web-based help, and that's what we're talking about here. And this is a very great example. This is a website, but you can run these tutorials. It's very powerful. And of course, web-based training is very big these days. It allows people to standardize and to get the training to people that, and in fact, even when people come in to do training in person, they'll often be required to do training before they get there to save time, but they might still want them to come. We all know what distance learning is. That's what we're doing here. We happen to be doing asynchronous distance learning, which means I'm recording, you're watching, and we're not in sync with each other. And we're probably going to set up one session where we're going to do this live just to show you how that works. But for now, we're just doing asynchronous and distance learning. And it's a growing field, and it's going to just get bigger. And that's about all I wanted to say about application software. Again, it's the software that stands between you and the system software, the operating system. And it's written by somebody, usually by somebody making money off the program they've written. And they're serving you. They're trying to give you the features you want. And there's a big market available out there, and it's changing continually. The area it's changing most is web services, and that's where Microsoft is going with their Microsoft Office suite. It's becoming a web application. It's called Office 360, and they're converting to that. And soon everything will be running off the web in some way or another. And the advantage of that for us is that we don't have to continually update our software in our computers. That will be the issue for Microsoft. They can update their software whenever they please. We'll be accessing it, and we may store some of our files locally and some up in the cloud, but we're going to pay a price for that. I mean, they have to have a business model which allows them to make money. So instead of buying a packaged software, we're going to buy a service or pay for a service, maybe a monthly fee even, or a yearly fee, and we're going to have access on the web for the software, and it's continuing to shift that way. You can see it in the music field. Google now, although Google had Play, they now have a service that just started a month ago or so that is like the Spotify I've been mentioning, and they have radios. It's like Pandora. A lot more of you have probably heard of Pandora. And the new Google web service is like Pandora. It has radio. It has you can play music you don't have in your library. The version before that, all you could play was your own library from the cloud. Now they're adding this idea that Spotify's been doing for years of having new music. And just to be clear on that, Spotify and Google pay a royalty fee every time they play a track. It's part of their business model. We're also seeing that with videos. I can watch videos from web services rather than buying DVDs or Blu-ray discs or Blue Disc. And that's where we're going to go. But there's still going to be application software. They're just going to be run from a web platform, if you will. So, application software, we've covered system software, we've covered application software. We've kind of had the whole gamut here. And what we need to talk about also is programming. How do we write these programs we're using? So again, any questions? Put them in the discussion forum. This has been a short, quick run through application software. Thanks. Talk to you later.